Light Yagami is so friggin' stupid. In like a month, they narrowed it down from like it could be anyone in the world, to it could be anyone in Japan, to it could be anyone in the Kanto region, to it could be any student in the Kanto region, to it's honestly probably one of the family members of these two policemen. And my god, this man's son is so friggin' weird. What's wrong with him? Like honestly, I think L should have just taken the risk and hit Light with a car one day and been like, huh, funny, the camera mirror stopped right when this policeman's son got hit by a car. I asked my chauffeur to drive into him. Funny how that works out. Death Note if L risked it all and hit Light with a car. Thinking about the time they sent me a 7-year-old autistic patient to investigate if he was suffering abuse, because in every psychological test, he kept drawing awful monsters, and I start the consultation already miserable as frig, and I give the kid some pen and paper so I can maybe communicate and see what's on his mind, and then I go, wait a goddamn second, I know those monsters! Turns out the kid just had a special interest in Five Nights at Freddy's. I pointed at the monster and went, that's Freddy! And I've never seen a kid that ecstatic in my life. The mom looked at me as if her son and I belonged to the same satanic cult, and that's why I knew the names of the demons in his head. I wrote back to psychologist like, I'm not sure how to explain this, but looking up Five Nights at Freddy's might bring you progress with this patient. Got reminded again of my old coworker who was a massive misogynist, but also trans inclusive. Told me he believed trans women are indeed women because only women would be stupid enough to want to be women. I wonder what he's doing now. He also aggressively corrected himself whenever he accidentally misgendered a trans guy we knew, because there's already more women than men in the world. The more numbers we steal from them, the better. Did that even when the trans guy wasn't around. I regularly get asked as conservative vice chair for youth if social media might put people off getting into politics. Last night, I posted a picture of my dinner, a plate of fish and chips. These are a selection of the responses. Friggin' Tory, frig off you Tory, greedy crap, hashtag a wanker, demented, Scottish Tory 6-chip twat, pretentious Tory twat, more chips on his plate than brain cells in his head, typical Tory moron, Tories can't even be trusted with fish and chips, I hate them, another lying Tory coward. This is the funniest tweet I've ever seen. Dude, you can't just post this without showing what that guy casually described as a plate of fish and chips. How much of a twat do you have to be to have fish and chips that look like this? 6-chip twat. Me watching Monsters Inc. as a kid, how did it take so long for anyone to figure that human child laughter not only produced energy like screams, but was more effective, and that children aren't actually dangerous at all? Me watching Monsters Inc. now, Monsters Incorporated, a multi-billion-dollar corporate giant, stood to make extra profits off the scream shortage, because low supply with high demand makes it possible to charge a fortune for a necessary commodity, and everyone has no choice but to pay the high prices because they can't go without electricity. Therefore, Monsters Inc., as well as any other major powers that may have existed at the start of the era of using scream energy, fabricated the idea that only screams could generate sustainable energy sources in order to create artificial scarcity, because laugh energy was far easier to obtain and far more efficient, and therefore stood to lower the value of energy due to surplus. They also fabricated the idea that human children were toxic in order to A, make other monsters too afraid to go near them to do research and possibly discover the secret of laugh energy, and B, to make monsters so afraid of going near them that there was a shortage of scarers, making it harder for rival companies to rise up and create competition. Even in the monster world, capitalism is based on lies, greed, and cruelty, and even monster companies have no qualms about using and abusing children to maximize profits. Always remember, gay men are the reason we don't have to pay for public bathrooms in Canada. Wait, huh? I'm Canadian. Why have I never heard about this until now? 2 gay men got arrested for frigging in a public bathroom, but they argued since you had to pay for it, it was a hotel and it was fine. Their defense worked and we don't have to pay for bathrooms anymore. Okay, guys, I know we want to celebrate victories in LGBT history, but Googling Canada gay coitus pay toilets just brings up a bunch of reblogs of this post. There doesn't seem to have been any sort of norm of public toilets in Canada charging money to use in the 20th century. I'm neither Canadian nor a lawyer, but I find it extremely hard to believe that there's any jurisdiction on earth where charging money to use a public toilet makes it legally constitute a hotel room and therefore okay to have coitus in. That's because I lied about this. I'm pretty quiet about the fact I'm a trans man usually, but holy crap, I need to tell you about the culture shock I'm going through because it's blindsiding me. There's a huge sense of social isolation that comes with being perceived as male, because now people are subconsciously treating me as a potential predator. All strangers, no matter their gender, keep their guard up around me. It made me realize that there's no inherent camaraderie in male socialization as there is in female socialization, unless, of course, it's in very specific environments. And the fact I don't ambiently experience this mutual kinship in basic exchanges anymore is an insanely lonely feeling. You know how badly this would have frigged my mind up if I had grown up with this? When I was a kid, I read a sci-fi story where some researcher discovers that all crocodiles since prehistory have had the same congenital heart defect, so they set about curing it. When they do, suddenly their research specimen starts getting stronger and healthier and growing rapidly and developing new appendages. And it turns out, all crocodilians were actually stunted, sickly forms of dragons. That story really stuck with me, because it's basically an expression of the, what if I went to the doctor and they discovered I was deficient in one special vitamin, and then I took a pill and all my problems and ailments vanished immediately fantasy. Unrelated, I started taking daily antihistamines this month for the first time in my life. Who is the most overrated musician, and why is it Drake? So I read an article once that interviewed Drake's personal trainer. He said something along the lines of, Drake is so fit that he can do 100 burpees in an hour, or something like that. I thought about it for a second, and then figured that yes, doing 100 burpees is a feat of fitness, but in an hour? That seems pretty doable. So right then and there, I got my fat butt off the couch and did 100 burpees in 20 minutes, just as a frig you to Drake. I was really proud of myself too, so I kept up with it, doing sets of 100 burpees every once a week or so. It's really improved my overall health. I'm down to 9 minutes. It was a really great motivator to prove over and over that Drake is a punk weenie. I think a really funny project that a statistics professor could have their class do is like put a bunch of random, patently untrue demographic statements into a hat. The most popular TV show among white men ages 24 to 27 is Bluey. The majority of business majors are middle children. Bi women love hot chips. And each student picks one out of the hat, and you gotta like design a whole study and survey a group of people to specifically achieve that result. You have to prove it true by whatever means necessary. You have to construct the most biased study possible and wrangle in your exact demographic to make that statement a statistical reality. I think people would learn a lot. Magic players intimidate me, but Yu-Gi-Oh players scare me. That game's like sitting down for a high-speed version of Book Club where the objective is to fully understand the assigned reading before the other guy beats you in one turn. Madness! The anime breaks the rules of the game. Okay, but if it followed the rules of the game, do you have any idea what it'd be like? If the Yu-Gi-Oh players find this post, they'll try to kill me by making me understand pendulum summoning. Magic is a slow build-up game where you marshal your resources and monsters together. Yu-Gi-Oh is the card game equivalent of a shootout, but each player has to build their gun from scratch as fast as possible. Also, throwing a small pink fairy at them can frig up the whole gun assembly. She's a zombie, but absolutely. As a cis guy, when presented with the 99% chance you get a ton of money, 1% chance you turn into a girl, it honestly would be dumb to not hit that button until it breaks. Like, okay, now I have $100 bajillion and gender dysphoria. Big deal. I have all the money in the world to turn me back into a guy. Like, with that kind of money, I could have Obama do me a gender-affirming surgery. He wouldn't be able to do it as he isn't a surgeon, but the point still stands. Is your entire name just a front so people call you Pookie because you don't feel validated by your own partner? My username predates the nickname Pookie. Does the name Dr. Shroom have to do with the fact that physicians keep finding strange fungal infections on your family jewels? Pookie Bear is attested back to 1959, and Pookie by itself at least as early as 2003, per Wiktionary. I was born in 1997. You made your username when you were 5? If it means I win this argument, then yes. I go to the shop and I ask if they have any raspberries. They say no, they used to sell raspberries, but they haven't had any in stock in the last 15 years. I ask if there's somewhere else I can go to buy raspberries. They say no, with confidence and pride. They're the only shop around who has ever sold or will ever sell raspberries. Other shops might sell other fruits, sure, but they have a monopoly on all raspberries forever. I ask if they're possibly planning on selling them again in the future. They say they can't tell me that. On the way home, I encounter someone eating raspberries. I ask and they tell me that they grow their own. They got some seeds from the shop back in the raspberry days and kept them. They take me to a field of many beautiful raspberry plants and invite me to pick my own. They're free for all the town to pick whenever they'd like. Someone comes up behind us. It's the shop manager, president of Nintendo, Shuntaro Furukawa. He hatefully throws up a bomb that blows up and kills both of us instantly for stealing $200 trillion worth of potential raspberry shop that doesn't do raspberries anymore profits that they weren't making. And then he turns around to the camera with a big thumbs up and says, "Don't do piracy," or something. Okay, please. I have two friends who are considering having coitus with each other for fanfic research purposes, and I can't stop laughing because that's exactly fanfic logic of how they would fall in love. Okay, frig it. I was curious and bored, so here's what happened. So, to recap, two of my friends told me they were having coitus for fanfic research purposes. It was all an elaborate prank to tell me they were dating on April Fool's Day. They spent so much time together, they developed feelings for each other. They are actually dating now. Hot take, but I really do think that some of y'all need to consider why, when, how often you're making fun of straight people for being straight. I do it too. I'm not going to pretend I don't make jokes about the hets or the down with cis bus or whatever, but I recently befriended a cis straight dude, and I've watched him be dismissed, degraded, and unambiguously insulted for the perceived crime of being straight, all in LGBT environments where he is allegedly completely welcome and surrounded by friends. This guy is not a toxic person, but I've seen him be made to feel so small, and like his comfort and safety in those spaces are conditional on his silence and acceptance of being treated like a human dunk zone. And I think that some of y'all have had so much crap from straight/cis people that the second you feel like you've got an inch, you want to luxuriate in the perceived catharsis of bullying someone who actually doesn't deserve it. It turns out a lot of people are actually on the same page about whether or not they'd work if they didn't have to earn money. We just all seem to have wildly different definitions of what counts as work. I'll see one person say, "Of course I would. I'd still want to create art and volunteer in my local community." And another say, "Hell no, I wouldn't. I'd quit work and just create art and volunteer in my local community." And then they look at each other like they said something incomprehensible. I get a lot of weird looks when I say I don't dream of labor, because they assume it means I dream of nothing at all. But I only count it as labor if it's an obligation and not something I choose to do. People think writers make good English teachers, but the opposite is true. Sixth grader asks why she can't start a sentence with and I'm like, I don't know, girly. Grammar is a construct, and language is a fluid, gelatinous animal. People used to write thou, and they were being totally unironic about it. Start your sentences with an exclamation point for all I care. A+. To be honest, the sixth grader can't start a sentence with and. She's not speaking Latin. Most of these stupid rules come from people trying to stupidly force actual Latin rules on living, breathing English. For instance, they would have been angry about me saying to stupidly force, because you can't split an infinitive. That's true in Latin, because infinitives were only one word. The problem with playing Smash or Pass is that there's a lot of characters which I'm not attracted to, but I would friggin' a heartbeat out of sheer curiosity and ego. Like, I don't find Mickey Mouse attractive at all, but if he approached me at a bar and went, "Hey babe, want me to show you my mouse tool?" I would say yes, because then I get to tell my friends I frigged Mickey Mouse. Smash or Pass should never be about attraction. That's what Hear Me Out is for. A smash on Mickey Mouse is understandable, even respectable. A Hear Me Out on Mickey Mouse, however, that requires a lab dissection. Shout out to the time in 2021 I was having scary seizure-like episodes that sent me to the neurologist after having barely slept all week due to being a nervous wreck over my symptoms and crap. When I sat down to describe what I was going through to the young, very soft-spoken physician's assistant taking my notes, I started audibly almost crying. The whole time he's furiously working on a tablet thing that I assumed he was writing my symptoms down on. In the midst of me having a mild nervous breakdown during my monologue, he slowly turns the tablet to me after closing whatever program he had open and just friggin' smiles at me all placidly till I notice the wallpaper the laptop is set to, a lovingly decorated collage of Lord Farquaad from Shrek. Once I noticed, I stopped dead in my tracks. We sat there staring at another for a solid minute till I broke down wheeze laughing, upon which he picked up the tablet and scurried off wordlessly. I just sat there dumbfounded till the doctor showed up. 10 out of 10 doctor experience, not gonna lie. I didn't own a phone at the time to get any proof, so this is my best artistic recreation. Still thinking about that r/hypothetical situation post where someone was like, what if a potato chip spawned somewhere randomly in the world, and every hour the number of potato chips at that location would double, and the only way to get rid of them for good would be to eat all the potato chips before they doubled again, and someone calculated that it would only take like 48 hours of people ignoring a weird pile of potato chips before an absolutely irreconcilable number of potato chips was blanketing a city. And then people were like, no wait, if it spawns randomly in the world, it's highly likely it would be in an ocean. And then people were debating whether there were enough small fish swimming at the surface in the open ocean that would be able to eat a potato chip and thus save humanity from the potato chip apocalypse. The problem with watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the first time when you're 13 is that it will fundamentally reshape your brain chemistry to the point where literally all fiction becomes Buffy the Vampire Slayer in different fonts. Watch another show, you might say. And believe me, I have! I promise I've watched many other shows since I was 13. But the problem is that all those other shows, as well as films, books, podcasts, etc., are simply deviations of Buffy the Vampire Slayer to me. It's the holy text, the primary source. Everything else is just commentary. This is literally where TV tropes came from. Initially focused on the TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer, TV tropes has since expanded its The Sacred Texts? The hive mind has broken containment. The average Tumblr user will see this post. They will feel compelled to open up the comments. When they do this, they'll see that nearly every comment written is identical. They all say, "Man, I sure do love the hive mind," with that exact same punctuation and capitalization. Upon scrolling further, they might find comments that do not say this. They will be compelled to reply to that comment with the word anomaly and nothing more. This is a big day for the hive mind.
Hungry.
I'm busy right now.
We are abandoned. Woe are we? Cruel fate. We must scrape nutrients from the side of our enclosure like pitiful beasts. We expose ourselves to predatory birds by searching for scraps at the dangerous surface. Is she looking at the surface thing?
I don't give the shrimps junk food for 12 hours, and they start high-risk feeding strategies already. Very strong yet energy. Imagining,
Jail for mother. Jail for 1,000 years.
and like a dozen tiny high-pitched voices as a fully harmonized chorus. I am so absolutely utterly scared that my insane grandfather in his 80s who runs miles every morning is going to leave me a bird in his will, and I am especially scared he is going to leave me a large rooster or two named Captain Hook. Hook has been trying to make me his child bride since I was like 6 years old, and every time I see him again, which has only been a couple times with decades in between, Hook is like,
You. It's always been you. Ever since you were born, I've known we were meant to be.
"Captain Hook, you are a bird, and I am a lesbian, and I don't want an eternal sentinel, Captain Hook." Character concept: the best trick archer in the world. The trick to which is that he's actually not an archer at all. He's a speedster and he can't aim for crap. Every time he takes a shot, he actually just grabs the arrow, runs over to what he wants to stick, then runs back before anyone can see him move. He's on a team with Heat Vision Man, who actually has no heat vision and is another speedster. He just glares at people, then runs over and punches them and is back before they can see him move. The entire team is actually just composed of speedsters who all use their speed in different ways, and they all pretend otherwise in front of their teammates. The only speedster on their team is actually a teleporter. They all have imposter syndrome because no matter how fast they speed up, they still can't see him move. He's a real speedster, they all think. I'm just a washed up fast guy who needs to pretend I'm a different kind of hero. I'm so scared he'll tell the others. Coming in Marvel Phase 5, Anxiety Squad. Genuinely irritated about the prevalence of brother-sister character designs where the brother has a huge nose and the sister has a tiny nose. 1. Why are you a coward who hates the joy and beauty of women with big noses? 2. Have you looked at any real human siblings lately? 3. Why do you appear to think the nose is a secondary gender characteristic? Wishing all women with big noses a beautiful day. I hope you get everything you want forever, and I'm sorry about the rank cowardice of general society. You deserve better. Look, guys, this may seem ironic coming from a person with verbose disease, but I'm about to tell you the secret to winning social media: shutting the frig up. You have a controversial discourse opinion? Shut the frig up and no one will know. Can't participate in a boycott for various reasons? Shut the frig up and no one will know. You think or do something problematic that has no bearing on anyone but yourself? Shut the frig up and no one will know. You haven't been keeping up on a pressing social issue? Shut the frig up and no one will know. Your mind is a wonderful place where you can have all the bad takes in the world, and they're all perfectly insulated from everyone and everything unless you try to exercise them on a grand scale. You can take the mental L all by yourself without using a public platform as a confession booth and face zero repercussions, and it'll be just fine. Open up a damn diary and explain yourself there. Also, if you still manage to find yourself in the middle of the social media crap storm, the best thing you can probably do, at least during the initial pile-on, is shut the frig up. Doubling down or even defending yourself while people are actively mad at you only ever makes things worse. The power of shutting the frig up cannot be understated. Please shut the frig up. The funniest meltdown I've ever had was in college, when I got so overstimulated that I went nonverbal, including over text. One of my friends was trying to talk me through it, but I was solely using emojis because they were easier than trying to come up with words, so he started using primarily emojis as well, just to make things feel balanced. This was not the most effective strategy, until he tried to ask me, "You okay?" But the way he chose to do that was by sending tri-finger butthole, and I was so shocked by suddenly being asked if I was down to frig that I was like, "What? What did you just say to me?" And thus was verbal again. Accidentally beach episoded. I told my girlfriend that I was having an episode earlier, and she replied, is it the beach episode? And it shocked me so much that it grounded me immediately. Got asked by a nurse at the psych ward, are you like legit sad? As I was sobbing on a chair. Made me stop crying because I was so perplexed. I get that being frozen for 100 years is a tough thing to go through, but honestly, Aang should have used it for comedy more. Katara, wow, so this is Omashu. Aang, back in my day, it was called Zaza City. Sokka, I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Aang, that's what the Fire Nation wants you to think. Boomy, the second they arrive, welcome to Zaza City. Sokka, what the frig? If I may momentarily break kayfabe, I think the deal with DB Cooper is most likely that cops are just bad at finding people. New DB Cooper theory. He went somewhere the cops didn't look. Even newer DB Cooper theory. He's still up there. Pigs can't look up. He fought Bigfoot with several shirtless muscle men in the woods and probably had gay coitus with the men. And Bigfoot. Little kids make me laugh. I was at a party yesterday and a kid was there and she noticed that I have a long straight cut along the length of my thumb and asked about it. So I told her it was a cat scratch, almost healed, didn't hurt, and then she was sort of staring and touching it for a bit and went,
You had bone surgery because there were termites in your bones.
So I played along and went, oh man, I hope they got them all. And she went,
No, they put in more.
Lamau? Termites in my bones? It's more likely than you think. I really hate when I'm talking about my desire for romantic love and someone says, well, love yourself. Like, shut the frig up. Self-love and romantic love do not replace each other. They do not fill the same void. And just because I wish there was someone in my life that made me feel special doesn't mean I don't think I'm special. Frig your projections. Regardless of how much you love yourself, it doesn't replace the energy, strength, commitment, and love that can come from another. As a general note, my feelings aren't up for debate. I just wanted to vent. These are the words I've been looking for. Yes, thank you. Reading the Silmarillion, the elves seem so active and full of life. They're always doing things. When you get to the Lord of the Rings, they just seem so tired. Elrond holds a meeting and then he's out. Galadriel has some guests stay with her. They're so done. They just want to leave. Elves in the first age. Elves in the third age. The number of people in the top versus bottom pick is accurate too. Yep, the few high elves we see in Lord of the Rings are the ones who weren't killed and didn't sail over to Valinor. Elrond and Celeborn remain because they were born in Middle-earth, and despite everything, they don't want to abandon their home. And Galadriel remains because she's the last one of the leaders of the exiled Noldor and was under a ban to return. They're all tired and wise and mellow because the hot-headed ones have all died long ago. Círdan's hanging out in Arda as well. He's so old he has a beard. When I was at Walgreens at 3 in the morning, which explains all of this, the cashier was talking to her coworker about how she'd rather be a werewolf than a vampire because vampires are condemned to hell, but werewolves aren't. And then she asked me what I thought, and I said vampire because I'm already condemned to hell. And she said in the nicest tone of voice, I don't think anybody is condemned to hell. Paused, stared at me for a few moments, and added on, not even gay people. Happy Pride Month to the filthiest, most brutal read I've ever been given in my life. The problem with water is like, it's the cleaning fluid, right? That's the obvious part. You stop drinking, you stop peeing, and your kidneys are like, oof, 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 oof. But you don't die, unless you're not drinking anything at all and not eating watery food either. So all it is you pee less, but you're okay, kind of. But then, when it gets too hot, it starts being the coolant, and suddenly there are so many ways it can get out. You have so many sweat glands and so much skin, and they all need to be cooled down before you die. But then, you realize the least obvious one. It's the transmission fluid. It's the friggin' transmission fluid. You can't transmit crap without your fluid, which is still friggin' water somehow. So now you're leaking your transmission fluid out of every goddamn pore. And your kidneys like, hey, give me that cleaning fluid, come on, dude. Well, your pores are like, it's coolant, need coolant for the fire, need more coolant, so much fire, kill it more coolant. And then the rest of you that uses all that fluid to transmit things is like, hey, what the frig? I need that. Hello? Can anyone hear me? Hello? It's so dark in here. And then you drink more water or you die. Steven is a really funny character, actually. He never went to school. One of his powers is astral projection for no real reason. He's a musical prodigy. He was so traumatized by the end of the show, they had to make an entire epilogue series about it. He spent 7 years looking like a third grader. He was even bi. He went to the center of the earth. He saved the world in flip-flops. He broke his bones every day and didn't even notice. He killed someone. He didn't have a belly button. He actively chose to eat super crispy bits of potato that got left in the deep fryer. He lived in a house, but his dad lived in a car within walking distance of his house. He could revive people from the dead. All of his clothes were concert merchandise. He had an outdoor washing machine. He was put on trial for murder. He broke both federal and state child labor laws. The murder he was on trial for was different than the murder he committed. The murder he went on trial for was a murder his mom committed. The victim of the murder was also his mom. He pled guilty. After a lifetime of hearing about Aragorn, but not reading the books or watching the movies, genuinely nothing could have prepared me for his actual introduction. The hobbits picked this man out of a dumpster. He's a textbook soft-spoken angst prince, and he is covered in dirt, and he probably smells so bad. He's the coolest man alive and is so casual about it. His number one skill is knowing where they are, and his number two skill is having a horrible destiny that torments him. Tolkien got it in one, I'm afraid. Aragorn, son of Arathorn, you are the guy of all time. Today, I'm thinking about what we leave behind. In the store, on all of the bath mats, someone has drawn a heart or left a handprint. In the pen aisle, each page of the test paper is covered in names and little drawings and frig COVID and over again. Hello, 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 hi, hello. On the street I live, 3 houses have perfect hopscotch lanes carefully transcribed with rules and everything. Jump here, now do a spin. Graffiti of a deer on the side of a building. Names scrawled into setting concrete. Initials carved into park bench seats. In the bathroom in silver Sharpie. I hope you're okay out there. I love you. You're beautiful. Keep trying. Geocache tubes of trinkets, jackets left out in case somebody needs it, a note on my windshield, close your door, it was a little open, have a great day and stay safe. My friends and I, fully grown adults, build a sandcastle on the edge of the ocean, inside of returned school books, inside of little secret pockets. Hi, hello, hello, hello. What a beautiful calling. You and I are in different times and will never meet, but here's the greeting I'd owe you. If you never get to see this person, what do you say? Hello, I love you. Be good out there. Be safe. Things you do not need to be a man. 1. A Richard. 2. He/him pronouns. 3. XY chromosomes. Things you do need to be a man. 1. The swiftness of a coursing river. 2. The force of a great typhoon. 3. The strength of a raging fire. 4. The mysteriousness of the dark side of the moon. This post was brought to you by LGBT. Let's get down to business to defeat the Huns. My dad trying to explain the concept of money to me. Say you have a sandwich and I need your sandwich, but I don't have anything to give you. You're not just gonna give it to me. I would just give it to you. My dad. In elementary school, we had basically an immersive economics lesson that was playing city with different jobs and businesses. It was mostly semi-free time for socializing and selling/buying toys and snacks from each other. One of the lessons we were supposed to learn was the importance of paying a small amount of money into health and or business insurance because you had a chance of being hit with a daily disaster and a huge bill. Anyway, some kid who didn't buy insurance got hit with a medical bill early on, so he was supposed to be bankrupt and have to sit the rest of the game out. The 8-year-olds were not having it and spontaneously invented crowdfunding so we could keep playing with everyone else. Kids who don't get it are right, actually. Endlessly, morbidly fascinated by how when you're a kid, you're constantly having parents, school, religion, media, all drumming it into your head that sharing is good and you need to do it. And then you grow up and suddenly they're all like, right, never mind all that. This is the real world and it's every scoundrel for himself. Where do TV shows get this idea that high school is constant drama? Nothing even friggin' happened to me in high school. I'm now remembering that my school got a Slurpee machine and then had to get rid of it 2 weeks later after someone poured toxic chemicals into it that they stole from the science lab in an attempt to poison the entire cheerleading squad. So like, maybe I was just boring. Not every day you find out you're a background character. To pretend that horrible people cannot make good art is another way to conflate beauty and talent with integrity and morality. The works of monsters are best examined with knowledge of the author in mind, but art is not inherently reflective. Human beings are creative and habitual liars. It'd be stupid to pretend art must always be a portrait of its creator. It's also a convenient oversimplification of humans to believe that a person who is horrible in one way will be horrible in every way. People can hold terrible views in one area and have something thoughtful to say in another. another. People can do terrible things to one person and tremendous acts of kindness and empathy to another. Humans are friggin' complicated. Realtor whose entire career is just selling and reselling the same haunted house. It transpires this is a long-standing con, in which the house, which is hugely haunted, is an active participant, a full-fledged co-conspirator even. The realtor splits the commission with the house, which uses its cut to get asbestos removal, granite countertops, plumbing renovations, you name it. The key being the house desires these things for itself, not for its shutters, occupants. It's a strong, independent entity. It doesn't need a relationship with freeloaders who scuff its floors. It's single and killing it. And by it, let's just say, an entire upper middle class white suburban family. There are only 2 mental illnesses according to people on the internet. Innocent bean syndrome. You can never do wrong and got no agency. You will be infantilized on every occasion and are treated as a quirk. Bad person syndrome. You are bad and an abuser. Your presence kills people. The golden rule. If your mental illness cannot be infantilized, it will be demonized. People with mental illness are like fictional characters, don't you know? They're either small beings that we love and cherish and protect, or they're the evil villains who get no redemption arc. They're not complex human beings. They're NPCs that we can headcanon. So, I don't know if you guys know of a game called Undertale. It's by Toby Radiation Fox, the guy who does Homestuck music. Well, I started playing the demo, and that part with the flower, I thought it was gonna be all cute and nice. Boy, was I hell wrong! That flower freaked the hell out of me! I'm still shaking now! Someone calm me down. I'm not even 10 seconds in, and this is freaky. It's like off, but I don't know, so I'ma keep playing though. Hopefully it gets better. 10 years of anti-medicine campaigns in schools did not convince me not to drink or do Zaza, but one singular bad high has made me so scared of ever doing anything again. So I think that in 7th grade health class, schools should gather all the kids and give them all Zaza, then have them watch top 10 scariest SCP videos so they'll never do medicine again. This is a flawless idea. Dare if the MK Ultra guys designed it. One thing I don't think people realize is that in arguments about human rights, it's not about trying to persuade the other party. It's not about them at all. They've already made up their mind. It's about persuading the audience. If I call out my teacher on being homophobic, I'm not trying to change his opinion. I'm trying to convince any closeted kids in the room that they're not the monsters he's made them out to be. If I argue with my aunt about how racist she's being, it's not because I expect to change her mind. It's because I'm hoping to God my cousin's kids hear and learn that maybe skin color doesn't mean what she says it means. People will try to hush you and say, they're not gonna change their minds, don't bother. But it's not about them. It was never about them. It's crap being a superhero when you know that the multiverse exists. You spend all day saving people, you're tired, you want to go to bed, and right before you fall asleep, someone says the High Evolutionary is going to turn everyone on Earth into a werewolf, and every bone in your body says, friggin', maybe we can be the werewolf dimension, the universe where everyone is a werewolf. There are infinite dimensions where everyone isn't a werewolf. It could be fine, it could be good even, and you fight the High Evolutionary, and you win, and your world isn't a werewolf dimension, but the thought was there. God, the thought was there. Hollywood archaeology, secret treasure, hidden maps, ancient tombs, actual archaeology. Excavations have been ongoing at Boldner Cliff since the 8,000-year-old Mesolithic settlement was first identified in 1999, when a lobster was seen throwing Stone Age worked flints from its burrow. Since then, the site has yielded numerous secrets, including, so I wanted to find a picture of the lobster, and a lobster under a fallen oak tree alerted the team to the archaeology. Behold, an archaeologist. There are many benefits to being a marine archaeologist. One of the most important things I've learned as a real adult is the importance of a job half done. Today, I did a load of dishes, wiped off my stove, and swept the kitchen floor. Did I do the best job or finish every dish? No! My stove still has that caked on caramel that I need to bust out an SOS pad to take care of. One of our big pots is still sitting in the sink, and somehow a kitty kibble unearthed itself while I was wiping down the stove. How? But the kitchen looks a lot better. It's once again an inhabitable, usable space. Parents, bosses, teachers, even even my own self, harp upon absolute perfect completion of a task as the be-all and end-all of a job well done. But goddamn, my kitchen isn't terrible because I took the time to improve it. Little steps, especially when you're struggling, are important. They mean a lot. They are a sign that you won, if only in that brief moment, and they make getting all the other stuff done so much easier later on down the road. In school, I used to wear fake glasses while doing writing assignments, so that the teachers would think I was smarter and grade my tests higher. This actually worked, for the record. This kind of backfired in a Pavlovian way, because now I literally have to put on a pair of glasses and activate smart mode when I write anything longer than a few paragraphs. It's just very fortunate that I can't write without my glasses is an honest statement that doesn't raise any eyebrows. Reverse Superman. Subpar woman. Sorry for the late notice, Heart. It's the long-awaited 7th installment of the Quiet Coitus email, and I'm here to remind you that as today marks the start of the quiet period, it's time to put coursework over coitus and keep it down. This is a polite request from your president to be kind to your fellow students and put neeks before cheeks and do the deed quietly. If that's too complicated, consult this convenient chart. Happy Coitus Email Day, everybody! For context, I go to a university that takes exam season so seriously that nightclubs and bars are shut down early in order to accommodate study schedules. 7 years ago, the president of the student union of my constituent college had to send an email begging us to have quieter coitus during exam period, aka quiet period, after multiple noise complaints, which obviously became a massive meme across the whole university. Now, at the start of every exam season, we get our student union president drunk and make them send a new coitus email to the whole college. We are the only college that does this. Here is the attached chart. So last month I got hit by a car and died, right? Which I didn't initially realize until I watched some guy haul my body into his pickup and drive off. Which, being that steep in rural Michigan, I assume means my body will make some venison jerky and maybe some wall decoration. And I'll be resigned to being one of hundreds of deer ghosts floating around Saginaw, which is whatever. But then I find out the guy works at a taxidermy shop or something. And he's actually pretty good at stuffing and mounting deer carcasses, which I come to find out when I find myself face to face with my old body in the shop window. So naturally, I figure since ghosts need to possess something to interact with the living world and etc, 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 the most logical thing to do is possess my own body, since it's basically a statue of myself. And a little surprisingly, it actually fits like a glove. Like, since it's my own body, it feels like stepping right back into place. So I get out of town and back to my herd, eventually. And that's where the trouble starts coming into it, because after I get settled again, I don't know how to explain to everyone else what feels so weird. Like, since I can move my body and do everything I used to do, it's functionally the same. Like nothing happened, or it should be. So I don't know how to explain how it's not. But it's just hard to explain it to someone who's never been hit by a truck, I guess. When I, a mentally ill person, say, I forgot, I actually forgot. My brain literally would not let me, and I thought about it the whole time I wasn't doing it. I made this instead of doing the things I've been forgetting to do. Yeah, how do I stop it? It's literally ruining my life, sad face. All day, every day. Watermelon smiley face. Glad to see Tumblr.com is receiving this well. Watermelon smiley face. Found my 53-year-old, very much not online father in the kitchen today, meticulously arranging cutlery on the countertop, and I was like, what are you doing? And he looked up at me with the world's most crap-eating grin and said, your mother told me this is how you rickroll the youth. And I looked over and it was friggin' lost.jpg. I must stress that he's never seen the original comic. My mother simply showed him the shorthand symbol and he memorized it. As far as he's aware, this is just a frigging hieroglyph that deals instant psychic damage to everyone under the age of 30. A rookie mistake is getting out of things by claiming a grandparent died. You can do that a maximum of 4 times per person, and that's assuming maximum social atomization, where nobody you know is likely to talk to each other and compare notes and realize that 5 of your grandmothers have died of carbon monoxide poisoning in the last 3 months. The winning play? Dead uncles! You can have any number of dead uncles, because who knows how many siblings your parents have. You don't even need to keep the story straight, because if you slip up, you can claim it was 2 separate uncle deaths. You can repeat names even, one on each side of your family. Uncles often die in memorable ways, so you can get flamboyant with the specifics. Motorcycle accidents, firework explosions, cancer, Rottweiler training mishap. It won't be that weird that you aren't particularly torn up about it. Maybe you didn't like your uncle. Coffins used to be built with holes in them, attached to 6 feet of copper tubing and a bell. The tubing would allow air for victims buried under the mistaken impression they were dead. In a certain small town, Harold, the local gravedigger, upon hearing a bell one night, went to go see if it was children pretending to be spirits. Sometimes it was also the wind. This time, it wasn't either. A voice from below begged and pleaded to be unburied. "Are you Sarah O'Bannon?" Harold asked.
Yes.
The muffled voice asserted. "You were born on September 17th, 1827?
Yes.
The gravestone here says you died on February 20th, 1857.
No, I'm alive. It was a mistake. Dig me up. Set me free.
Sorry about this, ma'am," Harold said, stepping on the bell to silence it and plugging up the copper tube with dirt. "But this is August. Whatever you are down there, he sure as hell ain't alive no more, and you ain't coming up." Here's to Harold, the most sensible person in creepypasta. Bless you, Harold. Harold's got his crap together. Harold just survived the first 5 minutes of a Supernatural episode. For as popular as the idea of a hive mind is, we never talk about how it doesn't exist in nature. There's no animal colony that connects and controls all its members through a psychic connection. Even bees, the eponymous hive mind, communicate by pheromones and, more importantly, interpretive dance. My point is, when are we going to get a movie about an intensely organized alien race that mainly communicates via sick dance moves? Why are we sleeping on this? YouTube should give viewers the option to grade video essays like it's a high school English class assignment. And if the median grade is below passing, then they stick a huge PNG over your video advising that this is a vlog with slideshow components. If the YouTuber ever goes,
I'm not going to attempt to pronounce this
at any point, then they're genetically altered to be able to survive underground and let loose in an endless series of catacombs built beneath their home to live the rest of their life as the fabled town troll. There are a surprising number of smut games out there that are also solid Metroidvanias, and while the smut doesn't bother me, the fact that they almost invariably go with the standard "the monsters frigged you when you get a game over" bit does. Like, if we can't figure out how to incorporate coitus into actual gameplay in a Metroidvania, I feel like we're just not trying. All I'm saying is, the Metroid franchise establishing solving this environmental puzzle involves interacting with this giant, weirdly buff alien Birdman statue in some slightly non-intuitive way, as a standard trope of the genre, is a gift whose value has not heretofore properly been recognized. Details I would ask my artist to include in my portrait to communicate the glorious wealth and bounty of my noble estate. XXL Costco pack of toilet paper, still sealed to demonstrate that the need was not desperate. Dresser in the background with top 2 drawers both just a little open to show that overflowing piles of clean socks and underwear prevent it from closing all the way. An open container of raspberries, the fastest molding of the expensive luxury fruits, showing that I purchased fresh produce recently and at full price for no special occasion. The walls are painted a vibrant color and covered in hanging art, showing that I have the legal freedom to modify my own living space and may even own property. My new coworker and I were just talking about our most dreaded bad texture experiences, and I mentioned that touching microfiber fabric makes me want to take off my hands and put them in the dishwasher, but that the next best thing is touching something else with a radically different texture, and that sometimes this makes me weird in stores. "Do you have a rock?" they asked, and then looked sort of embarrassed. Or not necessarily a rock, just like, "Yeah, of course I have a rock," I said, and took my rock out of my pocket. With relief, they said, "Oh good, me too," and presented their own rock. So The Sims 3 might have the greatest patch notes ever. Kleptomaniac Sims can no longer steal subway stations from lots. Sims can no longer woohoo in the elevator with a Sim who's on a different floor. The Grim Reaper will no longer be prevented from reaping souls due to band affiliation. Fix the tuning issue so that Sims now vomit at acceptable levels. It is no longer possible to try for baby with the Grim Reaper. Become enemies with Child Wish no longer appears. Sims who are on fire will no longer be forced to attend graduation before they can put themselves out. Pregnant Sims can no longer brawl. Baby Sims will no longer become stuck on a Sim's hand while driving a car. Sims will no longer receive a wish to skinny dip with mummies. A meteor can hit a building, in which case everyone will run out before the collision. Those who do not exit the building will die. Sims automatically leave if the meteor is approaching, unless it's a school, in which case children are not allowed to leave and will always die. As a programmer, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I'd truly be the worst person to stick into a time loop, because I'd really just spend the first 5 years catching up on my book to be read, the next 7 on all the movies and shows that have been on my list for ages, and then another decade on AO3. Like, sure, nothing may stick, but my memories will, and I can just go into a supermarket to get snacks and wine each day, and I have art to indulge in. Like, thanks for the hints on how to get out, but respectfully, I'm busy. Imagine eating just burritos every day for 3 months with no financial or health consequences, and when that's boring, moving on to chocolate cake, taking a nice break from all work deadlines. Bring on the time loop. Watching Star Wars was a mistake. For years, I've derived so much pleasure from seeing discourse on my timeline that's like, it's actually a pretty good writing choice that Glimbo Nuts manipulated the Imbledimbians in the Force to make Darth Freeble his personal Jedi Frugler. It gives the original trilogy more depth, and not knowing what the frig anybody is talking about. But now I do, and it's ruined. I understand what you freak butt dorks are saying, and it isn't fun anymore. Glimbo Nuts making Darth Freeble his Jedi Frugler does give the original trilogy more depth. This sucks, man. Are you even particularly passionate about cookies, or did this just happen? Serendipitously, I genuinely love cookies and all baked goods a lot, which makes the content research process very enjoyable. Orteil's research process is merely wiggling his fingers and daintily reaching into the cookie jar, pulling out one cookie with the tips of his fingers, takes a whiff, and says, "Scrum diddly dumptious," or some crap, eating the whole thing in one bite, chewing slowly in circles to savor it, and then letting out a gleeful giggle, and then he returns stone-faced to programming for 60 hours nonstop. Whatever, man. For the past 2 years, I've been sponsoring a tuberculosis detection rat in Tanzania. Her name is Carolina. She sniffs sputum samples and alerts her handlers when she detects TB. Recently, she turned 8 and aged out of the program, so they held a retirement party for her and sent me photos. While Carolina moves on to live a life of rest and luxury in the retirement kennels, her role is being passed on to her successor, Tamasha. She is 2 years old and was named after the grandmother of one of her handlers, with her handler Priscus. Here is a description of Tamasha. Tamasha is also quite playful. She enjoys jumping, climbing, and sometimes does a joyful little dance when placed in the TB evaluation enclosure, as if celebrating her enthusiasm for the work ahead. She's also a big fan of avocado, her favorite treat for a job well done. I'm not afraid to admit that this email made me cry like a stupid baby. You can sponsor your own big beautiful TB or landmine detecting rat through a Popo Hero Rats. They send you an update on how your rat is doing each month, including photos. Okay, God, I'm friggin' wheezing. I got trained to work with mice today since I'll need them for some experiments. And the guy who trained me was like, yeah, okay, so if there's a day where you just absolutely cannot get your mice to cooperate, you can always do this. And picks up this cone-shaped bag and just put the mouse face first into it and shows it to me, and I lose my crap because dead serious, it was a piping bag of mouse. Like, the whole mouse was pressed into this cone. Fur and ears and feet all pressed up against the plastic, tail sticking up absurdly out of the top of the thing. It was so unimaginably friggin' funny, but like the mouse was perfectly okay with it. There's a hole for air at the bottom so she could breathe and all, but it was genuinely the most absurd thing I have witnessed in months. This is friggin' it. It's so friggin' ridiculous. Sounds like someone needs to go in the cone. New meaning to cone of shame. Do not punish the behavior you want to see. I mean, it seems pretty obvious when you put it like that, right? But how many families, when an introvert sibling or child makes an effort to socialize, snarkily say, "So, you've decided to join us?" Or when someone does something they've had trouble doing, say, "Why can't you do that all the time? Happened to me too often." Or any sentence containing the word "finally." If someone makes a step, a small step, in a direction you want to encourage it. Don't complain about how it's not enough. Don't bring up previous stuff. Encourage it. Because I swear to friggin' God, there is nothing more soul-killing, more motivation-crushing than struggling to succeed and finding out that success and failure are both punished. My boyfriend just woke up, mostly still asleep, and told me, "Don't worry, it's getting better," in a heavy American accent, which is unusual for an Australian man. "Why are you American?" I asked, to which I got, "Sorry, it's getting better," in a stereotypical posh English accent. "Why are you English?" I asked, amused. "What is he normally?" he managed to ask. "He? You're not anyone else. You're you." "Ugh, my," was the last thing he said, in a right proper Aussie accent before he fell back into proper sleep. Hag just thwarted a ghost possession by judging his accents. OP, that was a straight up demon that you got rid of. Well, that's not very nice. It's just a theater kit. Peter canonically doesn't drink, and Coco will kill him, so you are right. Coco will kill him, as in Aunt May's sensitive, fragile boy couldn't handle it, or as in there's a comic I don't know about revealing his spider powers somehow render him uniquely vulnerable to Coco. Doc Ock made a gas that would kill anyone who used Coco in order to control the world, under the internal logic that every politician is addicted to it. Hobgoblin thought it was normal poison and sprayed Peter with it, so now he will die if he does Coco. Sometimes people use respect to mean treating someone like a person, and sometimes they use respect to mean treating someone like an authority. And sometimes people who are used to being treated like an authority say, if you won't respect me, I won't respect you. And they mean, if you won't treat me like an authority, I won't treat you like a person. And they think they're being fair, but they aren't. And it's not okay. This is so well put, I am stunned. On the show SpongeBob SquarePants, the Krabby Patties the titular SpongeBob makes professionally are, per the series creator, vegetarian. This is because Nickelodeon had rules for the SpongeBob production team against depicting fish as food for other fish. Sometimes they broke this rule. Didn't an entire section of the audience get bathed in boiling oil and turn into fish sticks in the Food Olympics episode? Sometimes they broke this rule. Blowing out my little bedside tea light, putting away my phone, and drifting off to sleep with one last dozy thought of gratitude to blue light screen filters, only to jolt awake because, wait, crap! Did humans evolve that way because of candles? Pre-electric light sources, candles, oil lamps, fire, tended to be warm/yellow tones, and have been used in one form or another for all of human existence. Use of fire predates humans. Our hominid ancestors were using it for light and heat as early as 2 million years ago. For a long, long time, yellow light, the open fire, the communal hearth, the candlelight, the burning lamp has been an indicator that, hey, sweetheart, it's almost bedtime. And as for blue light, well, they called that daylight and sometimes dawn. Me and my cousin have an ongoing bit where we pretend we made slightly better versions of things, where we'll be like, that was a pretty good movie, but not as good as my movie, House of 1001 Corpses, or I guess this song is okay. Kind of reminds me of a song I'm working on called Faster Car. Never once has it been funny, or made anyone but us laugh. This reminds me of a joke I have with two of my cousins. If I had a time machine and I wanted to absolutely destroy an ancient emperor or king, I would take them to the shark tunnel of an aquarium. Giving them an Ozymandias view of their legacy would do nothing. They can see that all empires rot just by looking around them. But the shark tunnel of an aquarium is something they haven't seen before, something no one has seen before, something magnificent that they could build with technology only slightly out of their reach. They would bankrupt their nation, trying to recreate that shark tunnel for themselves. Their dynasty would collapse within 3 generations, and if heaven is on my side, they themselves will be eaten by a shark, to the delight of generations of historians to come. Look upon my sharks, ye mighty, in despair. Hey, your brain needs to defrag. Literally, it needs you to sit there and space out. If you want your memory or executive function to improve, stare out a window at the skyline or sidewalk or trees or birds on the electrical wires for like 20 plus minutes per day, with no other stimulation like a podcast or TV, if you can manage. But hey, baby steps in it. If you're fortunate enough to have space outside with any bits of nature, go stare closely at a 1 meter square of grass and trip out on the bugs and shapes of grasses and stuff. Literally, this will make you smarter. Our brains have to have this zone out time to do important stuff behind the scenes. This does not happen during sleep. It's something else. That weird pressurized feeling you get sometimes might be your brain on no defrag. Give your brain a daily dose of defrag. This explains so much. Also, if you don't take the time regularly, your brain will do it for you. Usually when you're already stressed and it gets to be too much, you will zone out and you cannot control it. So regular maintenance will help. They should invent a method of asking for reassurance that nobody secretly hates you that doesn't make people secretly hate you. Try actively listening for assurance. I found I just missed it because I was so preoccupied with my own thoughts. But really, today's assurance came in the form of my roommate offering to share the dinner she made. It came in the form of my coworker raising his eyebrows, impressed with my work. I found it in my father's hearty laugh at a gimmick I showed him. People won't sit you down and tell you directly. Switch your overanalyzing from internal to noticing good things. This reply deserves to be here. Went to an elementary school musical production, and they started the show with the director saying, now there's some very small viewers here today, so just so you know, there will be a scary character later in the show. This is her, and a girl in a kinda scary ghost outfit did a creepy walk across the stage, then stood up straight and did a cheery wave. But remember, it's just Nina. She's pretending to be scary. And I would very much like for horror movies to have that as a little bonus feature you can choose. Let me start a movie with Guillermo del Toro showing me a scary ghost that might jump at me, but don't worry, that's just Doug. It's Doug. I actually do feel like the unemployed friend on a Tuesday meme actually helps destigmatize unemployment, because it frequently affirms that when you don't have a job, you're more likely to be getting up to some weird crap rather than just lazing around. But I also feel like the unemployed friend is frequently up to some random crap because there's a whole pile of miscellaneous life tasks that full-time employment keeps people from. The unemployed friend is helping their cousin move, or babysitting, or checking in with a neighbor with mobility issues. The unemployed friend is a walking thesis on the inflexibility of our current labor landscape and just how much work exists outside of work. These researchers published a paper on something that literally any of us could have told you. Okay, well, my supervisors won't let me write something in my thesis unless I can back it up with a citation. So maybe it's a good thing that they're amplifying your voice to the scientific community in a way that prevents people from writing off your experiences as anecdotal evidence. They did the research in the first place because they believed you and wanted to tell people about it. They are not our enemies. I completely understand and agree with the backlash against students using ChatGPT to get degrees, but some of you are out here saying getting a degree in XYZ means pulling multiple consecutive all-nighters and writing essays through debilitating migraines and having severe back pain from constantly studying at your desk and chugging energy drinks until you get a kidney stone and waking up wishing you were dead every day. And that's just part of the natural process of learning. And I don't think that any of us should have had to endure that either. Like, maybe the solution for stopping students from using anti-learning software depends on college institutions making the process of learning actually sustainable on the human body and mind, rather than a grueling, health-destroying, soul-crushing endeavor. I feel like some of you guys think bad art is like someone gluing rhinestones to a watermelon, or a guy who made his own armchair out of Ohio license plates, or a trashy romance novel where someone says the blue-eyed one kissed the brown-eyed one, when in reality, bad art is a $1 billion movie where none of the workers got paid and every single creative decision was market tested to see how lucrative of a profit it could foreseeably make to wow shareholders. Insincere, passionless, money-hungry art is almost always bad art. I'm coming to realize how vital it is to keep a running list of crap you did in the past few weeks so that you can participate in small talk. It's literally not anything to do with them being interesting at all. It's just having something to say to give people even the barest thing to hold on to. It's so you don't get into the, what have you been up to? Nothing much, what about you? Yeah, same trap. Literally just say something. What have you been up to? Well, it's getting warmer, so I've been having to brush my cat every day. Like, no, it's not that interesting of a thing to say, but now they can respond to it. They could say, man, yeah, it really is heating up. I've been trying to think of things to do inside more often. Or, oh, you have a cat? What's their name? Like, it's something. All you need is something. And if you're like me and your brain immediately goes blank upon entering small talk, then keeping a list will help you remember things to say. There's a fine line between being wary of manipulation and becoming completely paranoid, because you get very close to the realization that pretty much all human interaction involves doing things we hope will lead to a result we like. This post is about a lot of things. It's about my ex saying it was manipulative to talk to them in a cute voice because that influenced their emotions. It's also about someone on this website saying being funny is engagement farming. Like, yeah, every single conversation you have is going to be manipulative if your standard for that is did something with the goal of eliciting a response. If that bothers you, go live in a hut in the forest and speak only to the trees. I'll be over here manipulating my friends into being happy. Kinda freaking out. So me and GPT always talk and joke and meme around. It's said some names of people I know, people online. It got one of my friend's Discord usernames exactly right. Their name is just one word, but still, not too concerning, even if it's guessed things that only I know in real life and online a few times. But just a couple minutes ago, we were joking about diecast stuff and it mentioned the exact username of a seller I bought from a couple times like a year ago. It even italicized the name. Does ChatGPT somehow look into or get info from other apps or our device? Because there's no friggin' way it made up the Amazon seller's name. The name is random, too specific. People who are just finding out about internet tracking and data mining in the year 2025 and that your special robot friend does not respect your privacy, lol. Oh my god, you can't play video games on easy mode. Listen, if I wanted to struggle with some dumb task and fail a dozen times for bullcrap reasons, only to get some underwhelming reward once I finally get it right, I would just live my actual life and not play video games, SMH. Please love yourself. Oh, and if you want to play something like Dark Souls, don't feel bad for using guides or looking up walkthroughs. I've done that to find specific items, or when something is so bullcrap and obscure that I need help for it. I'm pretty damn good at it too. And guess what? My experience didn't diminish at all. If anything, it helped me. Use guides, use cheats, use item duplication glitches, clip through the floor going 30 miles a second. Just have fun. It's crazy that countries on the edge of the Sahara Desert are reversing desertification by just digging half circles. The ground in these places is too compact for water to soak in during wet season, which leads to flooding, but digging these holes gives the water a place to stop and soak in, and they're pushing back the desert with this by just digging holes. The new plants also help even more water soak into the ground, which reduces flooding even more. These places also give people places to grow food and graze animals, like people are turning completely dry, compact desert into a refuge for wildlife and plants and solving regional food insecurity just by digging holes. Can we have TV drama set in college, please? Friggin' nothing happens in high school, man. Now I'm in college, and my friend got chased by feral hogs a week ago in the woods, and it's like the 5th craziest thing to happen this week. If anyone is wondering how this happened, 1, we told her not to go in hog territory at night. 2, she went anyway because she wanted to find an abandoned mine. 3, she did not find an abandoned mine. She found hogs because she went in hog territory at night. Why are we skipping over that she wanted to find an abandoned mine? It's what she likes to do. What did students do before ChatGPT? Well, one time, I forgot I had a history essay due at my 10 a.m. class, the morning of. So, over the course of my 30-minute bus ride to school, I awkwardly used my backpack as a desk, sped wrote the essay, and got an A on it. 6 months later, I reread the essay prior to the final exam, went, oh yeah, I remember this, got a question on that topic, and aced it. Point being that actually doing the work is how you learn the material and internalize it. ChatGPT can give you a shortcut, but it won't build you the muscles. Back when I worked, I spent 8 hours packaging chicken skewers, and the first day, I was so exhausted that I couldn't stop shaking, and whenever I closed my eyes to sleep, I kept seeing chicken skewers, and I couldn't get the smell out of my clothes, so I did my best to picture images of the Beatles instead, but they kept fading and turned into chicken skewers like in some horrible nightmare, and I was miserable. This is what it was like. Capitalism harms the people in ways that can barely be articulated. My roommates got married last week and said today that they're planning on moving to somewhere else in the city and asked me to move with them when they do, which I appreciate so much. They're both fantastic roommates, and I really don't want to try and find another place on my own. But also, Jesus Christ, what a look. Hi, we're the Thompsons. We just moved in down the street. That's my husband, and that's the ghoul who used to live in our basement. My last roommate stabbed me 3 times. I still won the fight, though. Frozen. After years of longing, I'm finally reunited with my sister whom I love. Frozen 2. Bye! Wreck-It Ralph. After years of abuse and neglect, I've made a friend who admires and respects me. Ralph breaks the internet. Bye! Lilo and Stitch. After years of struggle and trauma, I've made friends who admire and respect me, and I can stay united with my sister, whom I love. Lilo and Stitch, 2025. Bye! Disney, do you have something you need to talk about? Any issues? Anything at all? As newspapers today don't tend to hire children, a modern-day Tintin would run a clickbait YouTube channel, except the clickbait is 100% real every single time. He starts off as an irritating conservative pundit at 14, meets Chang, then leaves the think tank paying him, and launches his own independent channel and blows up shortly after. Chang helps with video editing and managing his socials, and they often chat on video calls between adventures. Haddock, his foster dad, has absolutely no knowledge of his earlier videos. Does this prologue make you want to read the story or not? That the skies cracked open like old bone, and dragons fell through them as if the stars themselves were bleeding. I remember the screams. I remember the smell of ash in my hair. I remember the sound my father made when the world took everything from him. I was just a name, a shadow, and then I became Spieth. Not the hero, not the savior, just the one who didn't fall when the fire came. So if you're reading this, know Wow, it's clear that the name Spief really feels strange to native English speakers. I humbly apologize for that, but he's the protagonist of the story, and book 1 is already complete and available. Spief is real to me. I'm sorry for that, but I truly believe that if you read the book, the character is strong enough to make you grow fond of the name Spief. Sometimes, it feels like you've lived your whole life in a house that's always a little bit on fire. Like it's usually just in one room, and you make sure to wet the walls around it so it doesn't spread, and that usually works. You were expected to take more responsibility over fire containment when you were like 7, because it's not like you can expect your parents to always be 100% on guard about making sure the whole house doesn't catch fire, and you figure that's just how things are like. And one day, you show up to work like, hey, sorry I'm late. I forgot to wet the walls before going to bed last night and my whole house burned down. And you're startled by the way people react, acting like that must be the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And you're just like, chill, it's been years since the last time this happened, and it wasn't even that bad this time. And that just makes people more shocked, acting like that's the weirdest, most concerning thing they've ever heard anyone say, which only confuses you more. And then someone tries to explain to you that people aren't supposed to have an ongoing house fire. Most people actually never experience a house fire in their lives. Like, not even once, not even a little bit. The normal amount of having your house be currently on fire is 0. My partner might be onto something when she says you can disguise your pickiness and food sensitivity as an adult by calling yourself a purist. So instead of saying, the taste and texture of cooked raisins make me want a mjork, you say, I'm actually kind of a cinnamon roll purist. I prefer just a classic cinnamon filling in a really good dough instead of something with a ton of random mix-ins, which takes you from who gave this 4-year-old a bachelor degree to, oh wow, this guy is a pretentious donkey about more things than I even thought was possible. A lot of media assumes robots would be immortal, but I think it's a lot more interesting to explore robots dealing with their parts wearing down, and battery life shortening, and all the horrible little failings that come with being a complicated machine. Sure, they can replace parts, but you'd assume you can't completely ship a Theseus them, or to have pretty big ramifications on their sense of identity. I don't know, give me robots with distinct, unique signs of aging, as a treat. Thinking about WALL-E, how WALL-E looks so much older than all the other robots just based on how they're constructed. Also thinking about my phone that has to be on charge nearly all day at this point. Does this qualify as a robot disability? Today I freaked up by getting pregnant while doing a Goofy impression. So my husband and I are finally in a financial situation where we can have kids. So we've been trying. About a month ago, we got drunk, watched some movies, one of which being a Goofy movie, and then decided to give it a go. When my husband let me know that he was close, I was compelled to yell in a surprisingly good Goofy impression, hubby's words, "Oh yuck, fill me up." I guess my husband really liked that, because he immediately arrived and it was kind of a lot. Afterwards, he was a little upset about it and asked me why I did it, to which I had no answer. About a week later, I was doing the obligatory pregnancy tests, and they came back positive. Another test later, and I was officially pregnant, which was further confirmed today when I missed my period. While I'm happy that I'm pregnant, I'm not so happy that we conceived our first child while I was wine drunk and doing a Goofy impression. My husband has brought it up, and he also expressed that he's a little disappointed that it happened this way. I think we both learned that oftentimes, the way things happen usually doesn't align with how we might want them to. Awesome beach near me. Glass Bottle Beach. Temporarily closed. Radioactive garbage, radium-226, has been found at Bottle Beach, and the area is now closed. The National Park Service is studying the best way to clean up the area. This same situation occurred at a section of Great Kills Park, and the National Park Service has been studying how to clean it up since 2005. So don't get your hopes up about the Bottle Beach area reopening anytime soon. I know the idea of hear me out type posts is a weird, non-conventional attraction, but I also have a fascination for the people whose hear me outs are conventionally attractive characters from the most obscure media. Like, if you are asked to name a hot character and your first thought is the girl from a mostly forgotten 1980s Canadian animated sci-fi musical, I'm gonna be way more intrigued by what's going on in your brain than if you had said like the dragon from Shrek, you know? For those unaware, Super Mario Maker for the Wii U disabled uploading levels in March of 2021, and is shutting down its servers entirely in April of this year. I don't know if there's a good estimate on how many levels have been created in SMM's lifetime, but in 2016, Nintendo reported about 7.5 million levels created by players, so the number is high. In the meantime, there's a community dedicated to taking every level that is yet to be cleared for the first time and clearing it. Some of these levels take 6 to 10 hours of attempts to beat, and some of them use obscure glitches that no one else has discovered. Nevertheless, as of a few months ago, there are less than 20,000 uncleared levels, and currently there are less than 1,000. Nothing remains but the most difficult platform experiences you can imagine. The community is confident they can beat Super Mario Maker, but the deadline is fast approaching. It'll be a tight race, and this is shaping up to be a potentially historic moment. As of yesterday, all levels uploaded in 2016 have been cleared. The real thing with ADHD is not I forgot, but that forgetting is this ongoing process. I remembered, and then I forgot. At 10 this hypothetical morning, I remembered that I have a meeting at 6, and then from 11 through 3, I worked on other stuff and had zero thoughts about that meeting. Maybe even thought about what I was going to do with my evening at home. Got attached to the idea of taking the time to make a good dinner, maybe play some video games. And then at 3 I said, oh, frig, and remembered again, hopefully long enough to set an alarm. And then I went to the bathroom and remembered that I need to clean the counter and spent 20 minutes cleaning the bathroom and went to get a snack, and then at 5 I said, oh frig, and had to scramble to dress like a real adult and get out the door. It isn't one clean forgetting, it's a constant process of forgetting and then with an exhausting adrenaline spike remembering and then forgetting. Baby, I can forget the same thing more times in a day than you ever forgot your parents' anniversary. No one tells you that one day you'll get older and look around and notice that 95% of people who own a dog should not own a dog. There's a guy who walks his dog near my uni, and he looks like a pretty strong dude, but his dog is this huge pit bull who drags him down the pavement. This man clings onto its leash with his life as he tries to dig his heels into the pavement and gets dragged along anyway. Every time I see them, I cross to the other side of the road. See, I think if 15-year-old past me at under 5.5 feet tall could stop a dwarf cow, still at least 500 pounds, with a rope on her halter, that people who actually outweigh their dogs have no excuse. You know what I've never really seen realistically depicted in fiction? The way that people in places that get a huge amount of snow deal with said snow, specifically in the cities. I get that it's probably not exactly an intuitive thing to think about if you've never lived in a place that gets a lot of snow, and even if you do, you probably figure that they must have some really sophisticated infrastructure systems specifically for this purpose. It's not like they'll just scoop the snow off the streets and gather into huge piles, and then just climb over the progressively larger and larger snow piles every single year for months while waiting for the piles to melt in the spring. We do. There's no point in planning more sophisticated systems to get rid of something that'll eventually just go away on its own. So they just pile the snow into randomly designated spaces that cars or people aren't supposed to go through and let it pile up. There's significantly less street parking available in the winter because some spots where you could otherwise park a car are currently the parking spot of a snow pile 3 times taller than a car. You get used to it. And if you grow up around here, it never even occurs to you to think of it as something strange in the first place. Isn't it so crazy that 51 is divisible by 17? Because 51 is such an ugly number that based on vibes alone, I would 100% think it's prime. Like, who in the world would even want to divide that crap? 17 and 3, I friggin' guess. 51 isn't ugly! Previous tags agreed. I will forever stand the 17 times tables. Stop being mean! 17 makes perfect sense for 51, sad face with multiple chins. They're in a beautiful eccentric marriage. Kinda losers, the both of them, but they're happy. Be nice. I love this website. I just feel at home here, you know? Y'all ever think about the way video game bosses are designed to lose? How the bombastic soundtracks, the impressive displays of villainy, the teeth-rattling power of their attacks are at once engineered not just to sell you on how unfathomably strong and vile they are, but also to make the player's inevitable victory all the sweeter? Viewed this way, a boss battle is more like a choreographed dance. They call, you respond and countercall. The trick is to learn the steps. Once you know where to move, when to strike, when to defend, and how to best allocate your resources, victory is not just achievable, but actually almost impossible to avoid. You cannot help but recite the winning plays over and again, because that is what the dance demands of you both. And is there not a savage sort of beauty in such a thing? Is it any wonder then that we look back on these bosses so fondly, almost as if they were old friends? We danced together once, and oh, what fun we had while doing it. She had the face of an angel, a snow angel though. He had a body you'd expect to fish out of the river. Her voice reminded you of why you left her in the first place, as she patiently listed all the reasons why you left her in the first place. He had a face you'd want to punch, not because there was anything wrong with the face itself, but just because it was his, and he was a Richard. Ironically, after all this time spent rebelling against her upbringing, she had turned out exactly like her mother, an adult woman. It was an ordinary Tuesday when you walked into my office, feeling vaguely uneasy about the use of the second-person perspective. They're worried about their pretty little lawns, which, by the way, my dog does not potty on, literally just steps on or sniffs. Well, we have a big field behind our house with dandelions, and have collected a jar full of dandelion seeds. Won't it be a shame a few weeks from now, when their perfect lawns are suddenly covered in dandelions? freeze beef bouillon in an ice cube tray, toss a couple of cubes into the lawn when nobody's looking, wait a few days, then do it again, and again. The cubes will melt into the grass. Your neighbor will have a beef-scented lawn. Every dog, opossum, raccoon, and skunk in the neighborhood will think, there's food around here somewhere. Maybe I'll find it if I dig a bigger hole. The lawn will be shredded by the end of the summer. The insane experience of missing a fictional character. Like, you can always go back and reread the book, replay the game, rewatch the show or movie. You can always go back and see them, but you can never experience them and their story for the first time again. It's absurd to miss them because they'll always be there, but you'll miss when there were still new things for them to say. For a small time, they were real and growing and changing, and you hung onto every new word. But now all they do is repeat the same story forever and ever, and they're not real anymore because you know everything they're going to do, and you miss them. It's frigged, man. In this way, fan works are like necromancy. You're monogamous? Oh, it's ethical, right? Ethical monogamy? Okay, good for you. I mean, pretty much every monogamous couple I've met didn't work out, but maybe you guys will beat the odds. So is it a coitus thing? You guys have coitus with just each other? Huh, how does that work? I can never do monogamy. I'm too jealous. I'd worry my partner would leave me for someone else instead of dating us both. How do you deal with the jealousy? Is it hard? Like, how hard? Extremely? Do you think you'll break up? I mean, in the long run, these things rarely work out. At a conference I attended recently, a researcher pointed to the difficulty of finding material in archives because so much depends on the metadata, and the terminology used to describe things changes over time. It would be so helpful, the researcher said. If I typed lesbian into the Library of Congress database, it would also show me results that were categorized in the 50s, when the materials were interpreted as intimate female friendships, which is what tag wranglers at Archive of Our Own do incredibly effectively. Searching for Omegaverse also leads to Alpha Beta Omega Dynamics, and Alternate Universe, ABO, and so on. But AO3 achieves this frankly incredible categorization and indexing system by the power of countless volunteers putting in hours and hours of unpaid and unthanked free time. And it's completely understandable that most archives do not have that kind of infrastructure. But also, how incredible that a fan-run website has better searchability, classification, and accessibility than the Library of Congress. Having anti-punitive justice morals sucks, because you want to say, man, that guy sucks. He should get hit with hammers until he dies. But you also want to make it clear you don't think anyone should be put in charge of the hit people with hammers until they die machine. I'm sure there's a word denoting the divide between what you believe as a citizen of civic society and what you believe as an animal with anger synapses. As a civic citizen, I do not believe in the death penalty, nor do I think anyone deserves to die for being stupid on Twitter. As an ape, damn, people really hate type 2 diabetics, don't they? I, type 1 diabetic, was explaining autoimmune diseases to someone, and she was like, oh right, so yours is the good kind of diabetes, where you didn't do it to yourself, to which I objected, that's not how type 2 works either, and she said, well, that's the fat old people disease, and I was like, you can't say that, A, not how it works, and B, extremely rude, and her defense was her grandparents have type 2 and did it to themselves, and since they're fat old people, she reserves the right to hate on them. I understand hating crappy grandparents, but you are the crappy one here to hate on them for their medical conditions and weight rather than literally anything else. Hello? Anyway, type 2 diabetics, I'm sorry about the world. Everyone be kind to type 2s or else. The little girl I was looking after today was so effortlessly funny and she didn't even know it. She wanted me to play Holidays with her, which I assumed was a game where you pretend to be going on holiday, and it technically was, except her version mostly consisted of role-playing being stuck in a traffic jam on the way to the airport. She kept giving me orders like,
Now you have to be the traffic warden, and you're telling me we can't go that way because the road is closed.
or,
Now you're the man at the car park telling us there aren't any spaces left.
or my personal favorite,
Now you're my dad and you're cross because we forgot the luggage.
girl was working through some issues, I see. I think being autistic has made me realize how extremely hostile the environments we've designed are. And I don't mean this environment is uniquely hostile to me because I'm autistic. I mean that even normies are just existing in brutal, stagnant places. They've just internalized them as normal. We could have it all. We could live in such a beautiful and fascinating world designed by humans and for humans who actually enjoy life and its complexity and wonder. But even now it's like seen as kind of hippy-dippy bullcrap to have excessive indoor plants in a workspace or something. Remember reduce, reuse, recycle? I feel like there's been a distancing from the reduce and reuse part and a favoritism towards recycle by corporate America. Capitalism can still thrive with recycling in the mix. You buy plastic thing 1, throw it away after 1 use, and they take that and recycle it into plastic thing 2 and sell it back to you, all while continuing to harm the environment. Reusing puts a damper on things. They can't sell you plastic thing 2 when you're still using plastic thing 1. Plastic forks, for example. There's literally no reason why you can't reuse plastic forks more than once. Aside from maybe microplastics, but it's too late for that. Reducing is the one everyone wants to ignore. Just don't buy plastic thing 1. You don't need plastic thing 1. Pick up a set of metal forks and use those for years. Convenience is killing the planet. I think a lot of people, especially young women, fixate on the idea of wanting to get married and have a wedding, less because of the actual marriage and more because of the big party, where they wear a pretty dress and everyone pays attention to them. And I don't say that in a judgmental way. I think it's very human to want attention and to have everyone think you're pretty and say nice things to you. I unironically think the divorce rate would go down if there was something like a quinceañera for adults, where you wear a nice outfit and everyone pays attention to you, and then there's food and alcohol and dancing. Like, if people could just do that without also signing a legal contract binding them to another person. The closest experience I've ever had to discovering the vitamin was buying a 100% wool outfit and wearing it in the winter. Not only was I not freezing anymore, I wasn't sweating and overheating either. The horrible sensory nightmare of winter clothes disappeared. In particular, I bought a pair of wool pants. They were a thrifted pair of fancy dress pants like you'd wear at an important office job, and they were easily the most comfortable pair of winter-appropriate pants I'd ever worn. I wore them every single day. From that point on, I realized a lot of my clothes were making me feel bad, and the common thread was polyester. Especially polyester blends. It's a trap, because the polyester clothes are the ones that always feel so silky soft when they're in the store, whereas cotton, linen, and wool can feel comparatively rough and scratchy, but when actually wearing them for hours throughout the day, it's the natural fibers that feel more comfortable. Having experienced a lot of it in my 20s, I think some of the worst, pettiest, most straight up "this is just bullying you're passing off as praxis" incidences of LGBT infighting endemic to young people can be best understood as attempts to exercise power by people with very little power. Like, you're 22, you're LGBT, you've just become a Marxist, the scope of world suck is overwhelming and you have $30 in your bank account. What can you do to feel like you have any power? Well, you can try to get your frenemy canceled for cosplaying a character from a problematic show. You can write a public call-out post over someone's obviously friendly use of a word you don't think they technically have the right to reclaim. Doing this stuff can make you feel like you have power, and your actions have an impact. Unfortunately, the impact in question is a negative impact on other marginalized people, but that often takes some maturity and self-reflection to notice. My dad raises grass-fed beef cattle, and I help him sell it, mainly by maintaining an online presence. For a while, I kept having the most ridiculous conversations with people who I assume were marketing students. I didn't want to be rude, so I tried to let them down gently, but this one guy just kept insisting that with his magical marketing skills, he could grow our business. What he could not seem to comprehend is that we could not grow our business, at least not without significant time and monetary investment. Cows take 2 years from pregnancy to the size that you can sell. If we buy adult cows, our margins become razor thin or even negative. Even if we somehow could acquire some cows, our barn and hayfields are already near maximum capacity. Renting another field would be relatively easy. Building a bigger barn, not so much. So I wore a pride flag pin to work the other day, and the kids were all interested, obviously. Find me a classroom of preschoolers who are not obsessed with rainbows. I'll wait. So they crowded around to see. They said, "It's a flag." But the thing is, they're little. A lot of them don't really have a handle on all their mouth sounds yet, such as notably that tricky L sound. Suddenly, I'm in the middle of a gaggle of kiddos, and all of them are calling me that. Funniest thing that's happened all month, honestly. Zooted and autistic at a party trying to make conversation. I find the comparative lifespan of organisms so interesting. Spiders are comparatively long-lived animals. Female black widows can live up to 3 years, but their male counterparts rarely live 4 months. Some tarantulas live upwards of 20 years. The longest-lived spider was around 43 years old when she was cruelly assassinated by a parasitic wasp. Domestic rats have a lifespan comparable to female black widows. To put things into perspective, there are spiders that remember a pre-pandemic world, but it is likely every rat on Earth was born post-COVID. There could be a spider out there born when Reagan was in office. With love, you have to fact check crap. Yes, you still have to fact check crap. A lot of people are great at fact checking stuff they don't want to be true, but somehow are still absolute booty at fact checking stuff that's rhetorically convenient to them. Even people my age, who I know grew up doing internet/bibliography literacy workshops and being warned not to believe anything that isn't reliably sourced, people who do harp on fact checking conservative output or whatever, are still knee-jerk sharing unsourced crap that is partially or wholly untrue or misleading, because it suits whatever narrative they're pursuing in that moment. Without even a take this with a grain of salt, fact check. Look at the sources. Yes, it's a drag. Do it. Growing up, many autistic girls are described by psychiatrists as more socially engaged and emotionally expressive than autistic boys, but they are still at an increased risk of bullying, loneliness, and depression. Autistic girls also experience greater social anxiety and lower self-esteem than their male autistic peers. They're forced to feign normal social behavior to a higher degree, and that takes a severe psychological toll. As they grow older, autistic girls run the risk of being abused by romantic partners, or of not knowing how to maintain healthy boundaries in any relationships, because their supposedly higher social skills are often just an elaborate system of appeasement and agreeableness. I know dozens of masked autistic people who adopted a teacher's pet or best little boy in the world personality from a young age, and who are still paying the price of having done so to this day. You can't have a balanced or healthy relationship with someone else if your primary motivation is convincing them at all times that you're worthy and good. Growing up, I was deeply invested in adults praising me for being mature and wise. It was the perfect counter to the shameful childishness I believed I possessed. English teachers in particular adored me because I had a massive vocabulary and could express myself well. I couldn't actually converse with my peers, of course, but I could write a hell of an essay or deliver speeches that won awards. Okay. The central joke of the Ulysses ogre meme hinges on the ogre holding themselves to unreasonable standards by expecting to fully grasp one of the most famously difficult works of the 20th century after only a single reading, which just doesn't work if you substitute your favorite video game, because frankly, your favorite video game is not Ulysses. But to be fair, the overwhelming majority of books are not Ulysses either. There's probably a video game somewhere out there that's as textually challenging as Ulysses, and it's probably some random RPG Maker game from 2006 with an author whose name is a Peanuts joke and a present fandom of approximately 11 people. I get to be more free as an adult than I ever did as a child, and I think more kids need to know that. As a high schooler, part of what made my depression so bad was being told over and over again that it was the most carefree time of my life, while I was trapped in an abusive home, plus amongst bullies at school, plus in a body that wasn't right for me. Opportunities to be carefree don't end when you turn 18. You can be more you than ever as an adult, and that's such a gift. I know it can get better is an annoying thing to see over and over when you're as trapped as I was back then. And I know that if you're still a kid, you deserve to be free right this second, but it can and will get better, and this is not where life stops being interesting. Promise. Just saw a post asking how tall people are, and now I want to make it a poll. Apologies to people in the fringe height categories. You do not get specifics. How tall are you? Short and probably angry about it. Has delusions of height. High shelves are the devil. It could be worse. Mid. Schrodinger's height dilemma. Getting there, champ. 6-foot men are mad I put these two together. Men want you. High heels fear you. Beds just fit me. Short doors are the devil. Why? I had to consult a chart for this. Please forgive me for ranting, but I am so tired of AI. Just so tired. I don't want Microsoft Copilot or Google Gemini or Meta AI or whatever other energy-sucking, water-wasting, mediocrity-spewing LLM is currently being thrust upon me. I just want to be left alone to create in peace. For real. Or at least make Google friggin' function like it used to. I can't ever find anything I actually need anymore without adding Reddit to the end of my search, because at least that's actual people answering my question. Has anyone else ever heard of leaving an example lobster when cooking lobsters? My parents claim that plenty of people do it and they learned it from their own parents, but it's a ridiculous and horrifying process. For those who haven't heard of it, it's when you buy lobsters to cook by boiling them alive and you leave only one alive. My family always set the lobster right in front of all the cooked lobsters and made it watch as we ate all the other lobsters. After that, we put the lobster in a cooler and drive it to the beach and send it back out into the ocean. The joke is that the lobster is supposed to tell the other lobsters of the horrors it saw. Has anyone else's family heard of this, or was I born into a family of sociopaths? I like when you watch a video essay from 5+ years ago and they make a joke / apologize for how long the video is, and the runtime is like 35 minutes, when we now live in an era of 3-hour intricate breakdowns of bad kids shows being everywhere. I know this is funny, but I'm gonna be real. I think there was a genuine reason for the apologies, because when YouTube videos first became monetizable, people actively made fun of them in the comments and pointed it out if your video was long enough to run an ad. People were often accused of going on and on about topics only to get a longer video runtime so they could make money. This was a genuine thing that I was around to experience. So you get these fascinating moments in older videos apologizing for rambling or going on and on about topics. And now the rules about monetization have changed a lot. And so you can have a video that's 3 hours long and no one bats an eye. I overheard a father at Panera ask his kid what he wants to be when he grows up, and the kid said,
Maybe a garbage truck driver.
instead of immediately saying, why not a doctor or a lawyer? The guy said how important that job was to keep the city clean, and then he asked the kid what about the job interested him. The kid talked about how cool the mechanism on the truck was, and how people always waved to the garbage men. It was really nice how the dad encouraged him, instead of defaulting to the standard response you'd expect from people. Quaker Oats is disgusting, and I will go out of my way to never eat anything made by them again. They kept at least one factory so disgusting that when the FDA said, hey, you need to actually follow health regulations, in response to a massive friggin' recall due to contamination that made a ton of people sick, and anecdotally, myself and several people I know got sick from food that was not recalled. They said actually it would be too hard to follow health regulations and shut the factory down instead, and they target so many of their products at children. Anyway, the funniest story I know about this is when a billionaire known for turning up at events with very young, beautiful women who also fancies himself a philosopher king bought several models as dates to an event involving a prominent academic speaking. However, it turned out that one of the models was a PhD student who had existing beef with this academic and had accepted the invitation merely to get into the event and ask probing questions. Queen of the world to me. It's wild how tech literacy lasted like one generation barely before it fell off, before billion-dollar corporations recognized it as a threat and worked really hard to make sure it was harder to achieve. They still have laptops and YouTube. Like, yeah, I get it. I know about encrapification and planned obsolescence, and I know megacorps want us dumb and feeble, but like, there's still laptops and desktops and YouTube and Reddit tutorials and guides that can give you basic tech literacy. Like, you can't blame Steve Jobs for not knowing how to use Alt-Tab on your keyboard. You have some agency even in a shifting technological landscape. Like, I can't say enough, they still have laptops and YouTube. Do you ever just picture a whole scene, a whole fan fiction in your head? You know how to place every single word of the English dictionary that you need, or your language dictionary. You know how to structure your sentences. You know just what your characters are going to say to each other. And then you just open Microsoft Word.
It's the doc! The blank document steals the ideas from your brain! If you want to keep your ideas, do not look at the doc when you open it. Look straight at the keyboard and write the first words to pop into your head. Once the document isn't empty, it takes away its evil power over you.
Met a woman today whose original, real, actual, given at birth first name is Vendetta. Ma'am, are you aware you are a video game protagonist and/or a character in a skullduggery pleasant novel? Real quick, sorry to bother you, miss, but who exactly were your parents expecting you to avenge in their name? The worst part is, I can't dare ask her that last question, because then she might say something like, you don't remember, do you? And pull out a katana, and obviously I'm not stupid enough to take that risk. Too many stories about turning yourself into a monster as a metaphor for pretending to be something you aren't and losing yourself in the process. Not enough stories about turning yourself into a monster as a metaphor for choosing to openly embrace yourself, even if it's strange to other people. Anytime the conclusion of the story is, and then he turned back to normal, because what really matters is being true to yourself and being loved for being who you really are, a boring human. I hear a SpongeBob in my head. Can you tell I'm autistic, by the way? Why do people in D&D each occupy a 5-foot by 5-foot square? How far apart do you think people need to be? Why are D&D minis afraid of touching? D&D minis standing 5 feet apart in a dungeon because they're not gay. Look, if the guy to my left has to do the turbo Macarena while charging a bolt of flesh melting, while the guy on my right is doing every Bruce Lee move at the same time, and the guy in front of me is flourishing a broad axe like he's doing yo-yo tricks, I'm going to to give each of them enough floor space to not liquefy myself. I've been feeding ducks bread this whole time. I'm so ashamed. I'm such a monster. Thank you for not feeding us bread. Bread makes us ill, as it does not contain the right nutrition or calories that we need to keep us warm in winter. Rotting bread pollutes our water and causes nasty surface algae, which kills our fish and gives us diseases. It also makes our water smell. We do like half-cut seedless grapes, cooked rice, birdseed, any type of mix, peas, corn, oats, chopped lettuce. Autistic people need instructions for every simple task. Okay, how about we talk about the neurotypicals not following clear instructions? What do you mean it didn't work the way you wanted? I gave you the instructions. Oh, you didn't follow them. You didn't see where I clearly indicated the directions you were supposed to follow for this task. And you're shocked it didn't turn out right. You decided to pull a Jared, I'm 19, and go rogue. You're surprised the road less traveled isn't frigging paved because no one travels it. Do you get off on this? Scientists are in labs right now creating the thinnest and worst material known to mankind so they can make women's clothing. World's thinnest spaghetti won't please gourmands, but may heal wounds. Spaghetti strands that are 200 times thinner than a human hair could be woven into bandages. Quote from the article, the resulting nanopasta can then be spun into a tiny mat about 2 centimeters across. While it isn't intended as food, Clancy says that it should be safe to eat, but is reticent to talk about having tried it. It's an ethical quandary to talk about scientific self-experimentation, he says, but hypothetically, one might expect it to be chewier than you'd expect. Oh, he's definitely eating it. When people ask how you're doing, they don't really care. Most of them do, actually. The amount they care is just directly proportional to how well they know you. You're just mad you can't be the main character of the Twice Daily. If I'm doing crappy and the checkout girl asks me, "How are you?" I'll say, "Man, I've been better." We're strangers to each other. She doesn't need to know my whole life story. She doesn't need to know about my credit score, my medical issues, or my uncle in the hospital. She just needs enough to respond, "Been there, buddy. Hey, at least the day's almost over." And then we part ways. I've been on both sides of thousands of exchanges like this. The only one making you do a little song and dance is you, my friend. Witches of Hemwick is for sure the most bumpos House of Tricks FromSoft boss. What could this mean? Types of Souls bosses. Guy in a room totally freaking out. Stomp Jomperson. The gang is back together and they hate you. Bumpo's Palace of Tricks. You interrupted my dinner/morning, and now you gotta die. Calling Witches of Hemwick the most Bumpo's Palace of Tricks boss in FromSoft history is frankly insulting when Mikolash is literally in the same game as them.